Art direction and thematics. The stuff every game dev pretends to care about until they see a single shader graph and instantly regress into Victorian child. Here's the thing. Last episode, I was knee-deep in mechanics, which is great for a game if we completely ignore the fact that I've added like 12 cards max since I created this project. For a card game, that is. However, I have issues, and I can't stick to one thing for too long, so I'm moving on. So I decided to ruin my life and redesign everything. Again. The code, the art. By this time, I got a bit more experience under my belt, not to brag or anything. See, games aren't just systems. The art tells you how to feel about those systems. Otherwise, we'd all be playing Slay the Spire on a spreadsheet, which, let's be honest, some of you would actually happily do. So today, I want to talk about how I accidentally stumbled into making fractureheart look kinda good. How thematics turn my shitty UI into an actual stage. And why visual design matters way more than you think. Even in card games where 90% of the time you're staring at numbers like a depressed accountant. Hey, if you're new here, I'm currently developing my game called Fractureheart. Imagine Slay the Spire, but not. I know, very creative. My game, on the other hand, ties in emotions and their cascading effects, which will govern how the game functions. Anyway, back to it. I have added a lot more than I thought since the last preview video, and going through it all is quite a tedious endeavor, so we'll just hit the main glamour points and showcase how I went from this to this. FYI, since a lot of the changes are a lot of back-end rework and art redesign in addition, I will be trying my best to kind of speedrun the whole thing without boring you too much. I'm no GameDev, so bear with me, okay? Now, where'd I begin? When I say emotional design, I don't mean making the player cry with tears of admiration for the piece of work they're witnessing. No. I mean more like how a player's willed into certain actions and responses based on what they're given visually. Kind of like tricking their lizard brain into reacting the way I want. By giving a big, red, bloody border around the screen, you kick fear into them, knowing they are in danger because of their low health or dangerous situation. Their heart rate spiking, decision-making collapsing, and suddenly forgetting how math works because they're pixelated characters about to spread out pixelated blood. That is emotional design. You poke a feeling and the player flinches in turn. And they call it good game design like they didn't just get gaslit into feeling fear. I've been playing around with the whole idea of show but don't tell, and boy is it a stiffy. You can tell a player they have 5 HP left, but that's nowhere near the level of power of a simple screen shake. But you don't arise those feelings out of them without first immersing them. So, we draw. A dark, empty auditorium with flashing floodlights on top of a stage, with no way forward but through their opponent, with a small touch of following the movement direction of the cursor, giving it this 3D worldview appearance. For narrative design reasons, I went with the idea of creating the image in the player's head that their entire existence lives through the script. An important story item, as well as an in-game way of receiving actions from the player. You play cards from the Magic Grimoire, select menu options, check your health, and inventory through it. It is a centerpiece that creates the existence of the player, which is, at the end of the day, rewritable, non-essential, a thin existence. This whole design gives existence and reason for the visual feedback, which is blank. The player, the border, the emotion vine, all of it is blank. Void of flavor, void of color, and emotion is what gives it color, giving it life. I replaced the previous copy-pasted energy sprite with an inkwell for, well, obvious reasons. This whole design of paper and ink also solidifies my own oddly disgusting art style with a thematic theme. I changed the player from playing cards from a void on screen to a book that moves around like you yourself are lifting it and viewing it. This helps remove the complexity on screen when non-important while still letting it keep its usefulness. The player health bar now lives on a torn piece of paper on the side of the screen, which is just more reinforcement. Now, I'm still not entirely sure how to handle enemy HP since that does need to go somewhere, I think. But I'm trying my hardest not to crowd the screen too much. I'm currently in the works with the thematic health bars, like an anatomical heart with a small bar in the top right, but I'll continue brainstorming for that. While on the topic of art, let's take a little look-see at the cards, huh? Looking pretty fancy if I do say so myself. I'm a little biased, but it's okay. They look cool, okay? I'm pretty fucking biased. Previously, I was making individual prefabs for each card, which, considering I plan to add hundreds at some point, is an incredibly stupid way of doing it. Which, good thing I fixed it when I did, cause oh boy, I've been making new fucking cards. Now I have one card prefab I can edit whenever and whatever way I want, and have every card keep up. Managing numbers is a lot easier than messing with the UI. The quality kinda changes the more I seem to draw, so I'll probably at some point have to go back and redo old ones, but for now it's looking pretty good. Though there is the issue of card description sometimes being way too small on screen, but I'm sure that'll get fixed by future me. Now before I continue on, I do feel this need to rant a bit about the backend. It fucking sucks ass, or at least it did. I put a lot of time into reworking a lot of major systems. The game was sitting on like 84 scripts all working together for just this battle scene, which is not entirely bad, but like it was ridiculous and at some point got really out of hand. Like I only knew it was super fucked up once during testing I had the damage intent throw a different number to the on-screen damage text pop-up, which did entirely different damage to what was actually taken away from the HP value. It was a mess. Thankfully, I was able to resolve it by creating a universal damage context and damage resolver. So now all values will go through that and apply buffs and whatnot. And let's not even get started on the accidental god classes. You know what? No, let's talk about that for a minute. During the initial creation of the project, I would make a script like player.cs, just as you would, and just added to it. It had references for literally everything, because everything couldn't just have a reference to everything, so it went through one thing, and it just so happened to be player. So even on like the main menu, our map menu, player had references for taking damage, dying, enemy stuff. Like, it was ridiculous. It really shows off how little I knew about the kind of project I was undertaking. I started this as a throwaway project after all, but I've started to see the potential in it. But now with only 103 scripts, we were starting to look a little better. But emotional design doesn't just apply to battles and level segments. It also applies to where the player exists between them. For the longest time, the game has remained as a single testing-only scene. The combat area, I guess. Very fun area, I might add. However, keeping it that way is a big no-no. So I started working on level selection, a hub, and a map. My idea is to create a large hub zone for the map, currently named the Hall of Mirrors, which has been losing its name potency the more I go on about creating it. After all, halls are so boring to indie for me. What I aim to create is a large 16K res map that you move the camera about, giving focus to certain zones, which is probably gonna come back to bite me in the ass, but I'm surely fine. It's only taken about like 6 gigs of RAM to load on Krita, on my 16 gig laptop I might add. A lot of what you see is still a major work in progress, as the art piece is quite huge and will definitely take a lot of time for me to get it to be how I actually want it. So for a while we'll probably be using a lot of placeholder art. However, once it's functional comes the next big step: level generation. I do love roguelites. However, as fun as they are, I despise having to start from scratch, but I still want the game to be replayable and punishing all the same. So for that effect, I'll be going along the line of splitting the world into zones, around 5 or so. Any zone will have its cascading ladder of levels within it. Failing a level will put you back at the start of the zone, losing possibly a lot of progress, but that's as far back as you'll go. With this design, I can create punishing levels, giving the player a choice in their direction of movement, and create a foundation for a possible future arcade mode, like an endless world with challenges of its own. A lot of stuff I can play around with once the code settles and works. It'll allow for players to have a unique experience each time they play, while still allowing for a story to be written and have the player suffer for their action, or possibly opposite. Some very fun stuff to play around with in the future anyway. Now I know that was quite short, and I'm sorry, but that's currently the amount of progress I have at about right now. Speaking of progress, I do realize the last video is quite a number of time away from the release of this video, and the amount of progress might not add up, and that's because I didn't really spend all the time working on the game. I'm a bit of a heavy procrastinator, sorry. Rest assured, with the current level of work being done, at some point or other, I'll be able to have like a shitty demo out, maybe even put it on itch and have playtests or something or other. I don't know, to like give me motivation to continue working, because God knows I don't create no chemicals for that myself. Otherwise, I will continue working hard, unless I don't, in which case pretend this video never happened. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next. Peace.